And we are live for the very first time.
Really live?
We're really live for the very first time.
Cool.
Welcome, everybody. Facts or Frauds and Juan Galt.
Hey, everybody.
Now, Juan, we want to do this live stream because it hasn't really been touched on with the facts behind these gurus wanting.
Yeah, I've been wanting to do something like this for a while, and I really appreciate you joining in with me on this, because the foundational stuff on this, right to drive, no driver's license, all that kind of stuff, really hasn't been talked about that much, from the standpoint that the Sovcits have their crazy arguments, the judges just reject them, and us anti-Sovcits just yell 10th Amendment. And nobody really gets into why the Supreme Court said the 10th Amendment can do what the states are doing. So that's kind of what we're going to get into tonight.
That's right. And hello to everybody in the comments watching right now. Ooh.
Did we lose him?
So let's say hello to some folks here. I see Raisin, hello. Dubious Feline, Shelly, J. Ray, Frankie, Greg, good to see you, my friend. And are we cut cool clear water? Yes. And I don't know, Juan, do you want to say that name as a $sign in Chica? Is that what it is?
I don't know.
$sign in Chica, I believe. J. Ray, confused philosopher. Albion L. Hello, my friend. Fellow Pauline Light Tajiri Bay stir the pot upper. Stony, good to see you, my friend. Confused philosopher. Alicia, good to see you. I hope you all are doing well, and I hope you enjoy and learn from what Juan and I are putting together for this evening. Before we start all this, Juan, you know, we've talked a billion times, and this has been the number one question that I always wanted to ask on a live stream with you. And that's because you were one of the OGs of the Posse Comitatus, which became the sovereign citizen movement, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. In the late 1960s.
Whoa. Okay,
I'm
so
probably I'm probably
we're
the
giving,
only I'm
yeah,
probably
we're
the only
giving our
living
age.
one.
Yeah, we're giving our age out here. But yes, Juan and I figured out technology. Okay, we're boomers. Okay, get it past that. So you were the start of the Sovcit movement came from Posse Comitatus, right?
Right. That's basically where it started. They were anti-government, or at least small government, um, kind of the Freeman type ideology, and very devout constitutionalist. They had some things that I didn't agree with. They were kind of bigoted, and they became violent after I got out of it. I was in it in college for a couple of years, and that's where we got into this right to travel driver's license stuff.
That's right. And thank you, West Side Girl Reacts, for being a member for 11 months. I appreciate that. Now, you helped form that whole right to travel argument, correct?
Yeah, we were sitting around talking one day, as you do in college, and
Yeah.
we got on this right to travel. And we had a couple of cases that were around back then. There's been more since, but back then there was like Kent v. Dulles and Ethiker versus Secretary of State, and those were basically based. They were communist, and they were being disallowed to having passports, and so the court said that was against the right to travel. And in those cases, they went into quite a history of what constitutes the right to travel, as far as the rights and how they're been foundational rights since going back to the Magna Carta. And then we also went with the Ninth Amendment, which says that there's, certain rights that aren't enumerated in the Constitution. So we figured, well, that's probably some of our rights as well. And then, of course, we started cherry picking um, dicta from court decisions that had to do with, you can't tax a right, you can't license a right, you can't turn a right into a privilege. So that's where we got on to, well, the driving must be a right, because you have the right to travel and move about freely, and they can't turn it into a privilege. So that was the basis of where we started, and there has been a lot added on to it throughout the years, with cherry pick definitions, of course, the usage of the UCC, using irrelevant case citations, and just
Oh,
their arguments about, well, it's either commerce, or it's I'm in my private automobile, and an automobile is not a motor vehicle, and there's no
it's a
contract.
household. It's a household item.
Right, exactly. It's my conveyance. I don't owe any money on it. It's the main thing is it's my private automobile. They make a big deal about the term automobile. If you'll notice in a lot of the videos, and I'm going to cover that as well. And of
Good.
course, no consent, and then the biggie, the right to travel, and no driver's license is needed. So that's kind of the history of it. And yes, I was a Sovcit before I became an attorney.
And that's when you figured out, oh, I actually don't know the law.
Yeah, that's right. I tell you what, I talked and acted just like these gurus you hear, because I thought I knew the secret stuff. I thought that all the legal profession knew it, but now I knew it, and I was going to use it against them because they couldn't put it past me. And there was an organization we had of about 5,000 people that would do this. And the thing is the challenges, people started challenging them, and this is in the 70s now. And so by the 80s, there started being precedent being setting, and these arguments were being now heard in court. So that's where a lot of the case law has come from, and we'll get into that, and I'll show you that as well.
All right, now, so everybody in chat, I know we're broadcasting on both Juan's channel and the Facts or Frogs channel, so it's a dual live stream. So if you have any questions, and no, Anastasia, we don't have Juan to blame for all this. It's good, but no. He was just one of the members that thought, hey, I can do that too. So he's not totally to blame. So let's kick it off, and then we'll ask.
No, and I was a youngster too, and I was in college, and the Vietnam War was going on, a lot of protesting, and everybody was against the big government, and I wasn't a Marxist, but I fell into this type group, so I'm healed now.
All right. So
and if anybody has any questions, don't hesitate to put them in the chat, and Sean will tell me about it.
Yep, I will look at the comments because in StreamYards it shows both streams comments, which is kind of cool. So I can see people commenting in your channel and on the Facts or Frogs channel. So, and you can do the same because you're a co-host in the StreamYards. So we'll be able to cover everybody's questions. But first, let's get to the videos and get to the bottom of this part of this right to travel nonsense.
Right now, I'm traveling. You're trying to give me a violation for driving, and I'm not driving, I'm traveling. I have
just traveling as a private man in my private property.
I'm actually just traveling.
I'm using my right to travel.
We were traveling, sir.
You were traveling? You were driving a vehicle?
No, we weren't driving. We were actually traveling. I was actually not driving. I was traveling in my automobile.
Okay. Is there a reason why there's not a license plate on the vehicle as well?
It's a personal vehicle. I'm traveling.
Okay. Do you have your driver's license and insurance, please?
I'm traveling.
Why would I need my license? I'm exercising my constitutional rights, my rights that are protected by the Constitution, to travel freely. I'm not driving a vehicle, ma'am. I'm traveling in my private property.
A person faced with an unconstitutional licensing law which purports to require a license or prerequisite to exercise the right. The right to travel is an unconditional personal right whose exercise may not be conditioned.
Now, Juan, what do you got to say about that?
Well, yeah, they're sticking to the script. I'm traveling, but what is the right to travel? Everybody talks about it. What is it? Well, Supreme Court in this case we have on the screen right now defines and describes it very nicely. Now, a lot of the right to travel cases, none of them have to do with any mode of transportation. They don't even talk about how you travel. The whole thing, most of the cases are, like I said, in the beginning of the cases, most of them were about communist party members, and they were denied passports. Some of the newer cases now have been people moving from one state to another and that are on welfare, and their new state is not going to pay them as much, or it's what everybody else in the state gets for a year. So they that type of thing was challenged. And in this case right here, there are 3 different people that went from different states and they moved to California. California paid almost twice as much in welfare as their other states. But when they moved to California, California said, no, we're just going to pay you what your other state did for a year. And then you get the bump. Well, that court said, no, that does not work. So that would violating the right to travel of these people to go from one state to the other. So I'm just going to kind of scroll through here. You can slow it down in the replay if you want to read all this. It's kind of interesting. They really get into it. As they noticed here, the word travel is not found in the text of the Constitution, yet the constitutional right to travel from one state to another is firmly embedded. So, yeah, we all know that. But here's the really important part that you got to take away from it. Here is how they describe what is this right to travel. And they say the right to travel discussed in our cases embraces at least 3 different components. Number 1, it protects the right of a citizen of one state to enter and to leave another state. 2, the right to be treated as a welcome visitor rather than an unfriendly alien when temporarily present in the second state. And 3, for those for those travelers who elect to become permanent residents, the right to be treated like other citizens of that state. And this third part here is what this case was about, because they weren't being treated like the other citizens of the state. So that right there is your right to travel. Nothing doesn't say you have the right to how you travel. It just says you have the right to travel.
Yes. And there's a difference between traveling and driving, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, exactly. And these are the right to travel cases. And as it says here, for a statute to impermissibly burden the right to travel, it must affect one of the 3 components that we just talked about. And now, does requiring a driver's license impermissibly burden the right to travel? Well, that a lot of Sovcits, that was their thing, is that I don't need a license because I have a right to travel, and it would burden and turn it into a privilege. So they're looking at this right to travel as the right to drive. So let's see how they say. And the first one here is the regulation and exercise of the right to drive a what? Private automobile. So there you go.
Private.
Right off the bat.
Private.
Yeah, automobile. So anytime you hear a Sovcit say, I'm in my private automobile or my private conveyance or my automobile, it's not a motor vehicle. There you go.
But I'm living in the private one.
Well, that's a whole nother issue. We can make a live stream about this public versus private that is going around.
That's for sure. Continue, please.
Okay, and that is, of course, the old Thompson v. Smith that a lot of Sovcits use because they don't quote that section of it. And then we've got the right to drive a motor vehicle on the public highways of this state is not a fundamental right. It shows you have the inalienable right to make use of the public highways, and you can go from one place to the other, but limitations can be placed upon this inherent right because it's based upon a proper exercise of the police power. Now, if you people don't understand police power, been around forever, it's just basically the right of a community to decide what kind of behaviors they want to regulate among themselves. And that goes back, thousands of years probably since we were in tribes. So that's the thing that I want you to remember, this police power, because we're going to get into that. And then, of course, you can read the highlight here. When a citizen meets the standards thus defined in a proper exercise of the police power, he has a right to continue the full enjoyment of that right until, by due process of law, it has been established that by reason of abuse of the right or other just cause is reasonably necessary. In the interest of what? Public safety. Remember that. And that's what the court here is looking at, that once you get the license and you're granted that privilege, you can maintain that privilege, and it can only be taken away after some due process of law, however that administrative process is gone with. Do you have something to say, Sean?
No, I'm just loving every bit of this, and I'm catching up on chat.
All right. And here's another one from 77. And this hadn't got into the sovereign citizen bit yet, but it did have a fundamental right of travel that the guy used, because I think it was his underage son was caught driving, and he tried to say, well, it's, a right to travel. But anyway, the court basically said that the right to operate a motor vehicle is fundamental because of its relationship to the fundamental right of travel is wrong. It's actually utterly frivolous. So that's a very good one to keep in mind as well.
Oh, frivolous! I hear a lot of that. Yeah,
that's a favorite of the courts. That's for sure.
Yes,
but these are at least what some of the judges. We don't hear the judges in these YouTube videos go through their rationale of why you're losing your traffic case. And this kind of gives you an idea of the basis that it's all related on.
Yeah,
and we've got
the case law. They get wrong all the time because they think there's no such thing. That case law is actually common law, and that's just wrong.
Case law is actually common law. Case law is judge-made law. Common law is judge-made law. So it basically is.
Yeah,
from that standpoint.
But it's not the common law they think it is.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell kind of common law they think. It's weird. It's weird to me.
Yeah, natural law. Okay, sure. But keep on going. I'm loving these cases because every single one of these cases, judges that we see in the court videos every day don't quote these cases, and I think they should, because maybe it'll get this nonsense to swell a little down.
Well, we've got this next one here, which is going to get into it. There is no constitutional right to a particular mode of travel. There you go. The right to travel is not being denied. The defendants are being prohibited from using a particular mode of travel in a particular way in order to protect the public at large. Remember that, it's key, which we find to be reasonable under the circumstances. So the prohibition from not being able to not having to have a driver's license or having a driver's license is not unreasonable. It doesn't overly burden this right to travel. We're seeing this here in this case being mentioned. And here's another one that, just as the right to speak cannot conceivably imply the right to speak whenever, wherever, and however one pleases, even in a public forum specifically used for public speech, so too, the right to travel cannot conceivably imply the right to travel whenever, wherever, and however one pleases, even on roads specifically designed for public travel. How much clearer can one get on that? And this is like a 1990 case.
Right on. Hey, now, good to see you.
Now, I do notice that there was a lapse in time where this right to travel stuff kind of went away, but I noticed in the mid-90s it kind of popped its head back up, and I think that had to do with the Eamon Bundy and his case or something back in the 70s when he was fighting the federal government.
Yeah.
And here's another one. Also, that an individual enjoys the fundamental right to engage in travel. No fundamental right to drive without a license or tags exist. That's a 1999 circuit court case and an 11th circuit court case. So, I mean, every court in every state in the nation, I believe, has at one time a case and has case law on it. I don't know how many cases of this stuff, but I'm sure I don't have all of them. And it amazes me that it still goes on.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just blows my mind. After how many years, never winning a case based on the merits, because we know dismissals happen, cops don't show up, whatever, the prosecutor has too many cases, don't want to argue pseudo law over $150 ticket, things get dismissed. But it's not a win on the Sovcit side in any manner.
And I don't know if you're really even seeing that much anymore in on what we're seeing in the Zoom courts. I mean,
Right.
5, 6, 7 years ago, there were some videos where, the cases were getting dismissed. But now it seems like, I guess, most of the judges have seen a Sovcit argument like these at one point in time, because they're certainly not putting up with it as much.
Yeah. Well, this afternoon's video that I released of Mr. McLeod in Michigan, he thought it was over, and then they had pre-trial. He didn't show up. Bench warrant. He gets arrested the very next day. Then he's brought into court, and his bond is revoked until October. Rock on, Sovcits. Rock on.
Yeah, you'd think once bit, twice shy, but some of these people, they just don't learn.
Right.
And here's another one that goes to it, that however, the denial of only one mode of transportation does not violate the right to interstate travel. And that word interstate travel is used a lot, I've noticed, in some of these cases, when most of us would think they're talking about interstate commerce. And so sometimes they use the words interstate commerce to reflect interstate travel in these real early cases we'll cover. But anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out there. It's some of the trivia that you kind of run across when you're researching all these old cases. Now, here's another one that I thought was real good. I always liked. He has at all times remained free from state regulation and constraint, able to leave this state and travel as he pleases. He was free to get on a plane and fly to New York, free to take a bus back to Wyoming. He existed free of any state interference of this right to travel. This notion of the right to travel remains wholly separate from the right or privilege to operate a motor vehicle on the public highways in Montana. As was recently stated, appellant's assertion that the right to travel encompasses the unrestrained use of the highway is wrong. And here's another one.
Wrong.
Yep. The plaintiff's argument that the right to operate a motor vehicle is fundamental because of its relation to the fundamental right of interstate travel is utterly frivolous. The 2000 case. Got another one here that Miller contends the DMV violated his fundamental right to interstate travel by depriving him of the use of his primary means of travel, driving an automobile. And nope, he provides no precedent supporting his contention. And as they went further to say, a rich man can choose to drive a limousine, a poor man may have to walk. The poor man's lack of choice in his mode of travel may be unfortunate, but is not unconstitutional.
Ooh.
Now, I don't know how clear you can make it. So any of you run across these Sovcits in these comment sections, remember some of this stuff. In sum, Miller does not have a fundamental right to drive a motor vehicle, and the DMV did not unconstitutionally impede his right to interstate travel by denying him a driver's license. And then another one here.
All you gurus, are you listening? Please feel free to comment. Jay Lova, where you at? Where's your comments and questions, buddy? Keep on going, my friend.
Here's another one. Tennessee thought his right to travel was being infringed upon, and the court just basically say this whole is wholly separate from the right to travel, and that is having to have a driver's license. That's a 97 case, one from 86. Like I said, 85. You're going to see a lot of these from the 80s, early 90s. That's when they started getting in the higher courts and making some precedent. Here's another one. Appellate also argues that citizens of the states have a common law right to travel. There you go. Without approval or restriction. I don't know what common law that is. It is well settled that the legislature has the power and duty to promote the public health, safety, and general welfare of all citizens. That, ladies and gentlemen, they just defined what police power is. That's what is considered the police power, is the state's power and duty to promote the public health, safety, and general welfare of all citizens. And we'll get into that even further. Here's another one from Utah. Same thing. Right to travel does not include the ability to ignore laws governing the use of public roadways. So you can use the roadways. You have a right to use the roadways. You just have to use them according to the regulations. It's just that simple. Here's another one. Common law right to travel. He says that contends that operating an unregistered vehicle charge should have been dismissed because it was brought in violation of the people's common law right to travel, and that an American citizen does indeed have the inalienable right to use the roadways unrestricted in any manner as long as they are not damaging or violating property or rights of another. You know, when you hear him say that, where's the victim? Where's the victim? See?
Yeah, where's the victim?
Kaysen is wrong.
How could it be?
Yes, exactly. And here again is another one from 2015. He's trying it in 2015 because he has a fundamental right to travel guaranteed by the U.S. Constitution. No, Supreme Court settled this point in 1915 from Hendrick v. Maryland. And they say this is but an exercise of the police power uniformly recognized as belonging to the states and essential to the preservation of the health, safety, and comfort of their citizens. This Hendrick case is the seminal case regarding the constitutionality of a state's requirements. And we'll get into that, a deep dive into that.
Nice.
So here's some more cases, and here's a lot of, like I said, I got a bunch of cases, but there's a bunch of them. This State v. Gunnell here, this guy gets in there, and Sean, this is the one you know about. And
yeah, shout out to Kevin. How you doing, Kevin? Mr. L.
And he uses the old, artificial person, all cap stuff, and that's not me. That's all caps, and you got to go against my trust because of the UCC and all that. And this is just something under Admiralty. You've heard it all. You're starting to hear it more and more. But this case here, back in 2013 from Ohio, really sets it out where he just says no. The courts just say no. That's about as much BS as you can get. The all caps straw name doesn't mean anything. Petitioner's act of writing his name in all cap letters did not change him from a human, natural person to a legal entity. That can't be any clearer. That's from 2013. Rejecting defendant's claim that the use of capital letters means that the defendant is an artificial or fictitious person. We hear that. There's more. And then otherwise here, the UCC has no bearing on criminal subject matter jurisdiction. There you go. That's just as simple as it can be. So that kind of gets us into what the right to travel is all about.
All right. So we got that part out of the way, saying, hey, I got the right to travel. But, and I'm sure broken system, broken trust. I see you. I know you love Zoom court. You're still running from your warrant. I got you. Good for you. But what about this? Hey, I'm not driving for commerce.
So, yeah, I'm not in commerce?
Yeah. I kind of got that from your plates or what?
Yes.
But
I also turned in the right paperwork that I'm not involved in any commerce. Nothing that's in here.
Okay. Hey there.
How's it going?
Hey, pretty good. Hey, it's time for a couple reasons. First off, you don't have your front plate mounted.
Right.
As required.
Because I don't believe I'm required to.
Okay.
Is that,
state statute says you are.
Statutes aren't laws.
Yeah, they are.
Technically
second,
not.
You have expired registration.
Okay.
And you have an obvious window tint violation.
That's cool.
So, your ID with you?
I don't. If I haven't committed a crime, I'd rather not provide my identifications. If you want to write me a ticket for the infractions, I'm totally happy to fight it out in court. That's
Listen,
cool.
man, I'm not here to be a jerk.
I got you.
I understand you have your thoughts, a way of thinking.
No, and you see that don't tread on me on the front, and I feel like you want to tread on me, so
No,
I
I'm
would
not here
appreciate
to
a ticket so I
interfere
can
with
be on
your
my way.
thoughts. Okay, but you are required to provide an ID.
Am I?
You are, yes, by law.
With all caps corporate identification, I'm not one of your employees. I'm a man traveling in my private property. I'm not doing commerce on the roadways. And if you call for backup, you're conspiring against my rights.
Can you send me a backup unit?
Could you get me a supervisor as well, too?
Hello, sir. I think you know why I pulled you over.
Yeah, I got an idea.
Do you have any registration or anything for this vehicle?
No, I don't.
No registration? No driver's license?
No driver's license.
No driver's license
no.
either?
I'm not operating commercially.
Okay. You must have a driver's license, registration, and insurance, sir.
I'm not operating. I'm not operating commercially. You guys have my fee schedule.
Alrighty then. Juan, what do you think about that? The whole commerce.
The old.
Yeah.
The old I'm not in commerce.
Yes,
yeah.
I'm not driving
I'm not in
commercially.
commerce. Well, so just because you're not driving commercially, the public safety doesn't have to worry about you. I see. Only people driving commercially are a threat to public safety.
Right. That drunk driver,
interesting.
He's an Uber guy.
Interesting logic they use there. Well, let's get started here. Now, here's the first case. This is from 2019, and the plaintiff alleges that the state cannot require her to register or insure her vehicle because she's not using the vehicle in commercial capacity. Specifically, she contends that the government cannot require private citizens not engaged in commercial activity to register or insure their vehicles because to do so would infringe upon those individual constitutional right to travel and the United States Motor Vehicle Program. She lost. And here's another one from 2019. We first addressed Covington's argument supporting his third point of error, which is that he was a traveler, not an operator, because he was not using the roads as a place of business, nor was he using the road for personal economic gain. As the state points out, however, the no-fault insurance statute requires that all vehicles, commercial, private, or otherwise, must be insured. Covington cites no authority to the contrary, and we find none because there is none. And here's another one from 2019. And this one covers a lot of ground because some of them will cite to federal laws and trying to say and use federal definitions of motor vehicle or commercial vehicle and stuff like that. And this guy did it. Defendant has argued throughout this matter that he was not required to register his automobile because Title 39 only applies to motor vehicles used for commercial purposes for the conveyance of persons for hire. It is undisputed that the defendant's vehicle was not registered as a commercial vehicle, and he used it for pleasure, not for commercial purposes or for the conveyance of persons for hire. But the term motor vehicle includes all vehicles propelled otherwise than by muscular power. And that the court underlined, not me. Thus, all motor vehicles used for the conveyance of persons for hire, pleasure, or business must be registered if driven by a resident or non-resident of this state. This here's from New Jersey, and it's just like every other case we're going to see. Commerce plays no part in it whatsoever. For approximately 100 years, the Supreme Court has recognized that states may require all those operating motor vehicles for pleasure or business on the public ways to obtain licenses and to register their vehicles. That's from 2016. Another one here. Got something?
No, that's good.
Oh, well, I get going, so you need to stop me if somebody has a question or you want to address a point.
Nope, I was just starring the questions in the comment section. So if any of you guys got questions, we're going to get to that after Juan breaks down these cases, because this stuff isn't what the gurus teach you. And Josh, yes, you still have a warrant out for you in Taylor, Michigan. Continue on.
Well, here's another one. He says you only need a license for commercial gain, and he quotes to ex parte Dickey, and a lot of them do, but it doesn't support his contention that a valid license to drive a vehicle is required only for business purposes. As we explained briefly in Masters, there is no need to regulate motor vehicles for both businesses and pleasure. There is a need to regulate motor vehicles for both businesses and pleasure purposes. So, I mean, these get real specific about a driver's license and registering and no commerce, and whoever's on the road, just being on the road does it. You know, they're very specific, but none of the cases these Sovcits ever quote are specific at all to what they're trying to say. They don't cover the court addressing whether a driver's license is required or not. They don't cover whether the court doesn't cover whether or not the car has to be registered. They have something completely to do with nothing about requiring a driver's license. And that's why they just kind of cobble all these misquotes together and make it sound like, hey, you don't need a driver's license. You can't get any clearer than what these courts say. That was the Virginia Supreme Court, by the way. Here's another one from Texas, 2009. Sean, you said you got a Texas guy that he just knows you don't need a license. Is that right?
Well, yeah, our friend Rebel, as many folks have seen in the beginning of some videos, likes to go on his little rants, and he's gotten 2 trucks impounded. And our good friend Shaggy Hippie, which, listen, I will give him this. He went and registered his truck, got insurance, and got his driver's license. He doesn't agree still, but he did it. So good for you, man. I'm proud of you.
Well, I've got some Texas ones here. This guy here, Dorman, suggests that the legislature intended to regulate only commercial common carriers. But the legislative intent is clear. A person other than a person expressly exempted may not operate a motor vehicle on the highway in this state for pleasure business unless the person holds a driver's license issued under this chapter. And the term motor vehicle means a self-propelled vehicle, and that definition is not confined to vehicles being driven for hire. So you can tell him that next time. You can stop this and write that down.
Right.
And here's another one from 2002 from Wisconsin. Same thing. His theory, the right to travel may be regulated only if he's hauling for hire. But to the contrary, court says, no, sorry. Here's another one from 2000. He contends the same thing. Now, here he gets into wanting to use his definitions of transportation, carrier, driver, chauffeur. And he appears to argue that because his automobile is a commercial vehicle, he should not have been convicted for the charge. So there again, nope, wrong. We disagree, the court says. Here's another one from Tennessee. Same thing. He's saying non-commercial use of his automobile. See, they use that automobile instead of motor vehicle. These issues are without merit. Another one here, so long as they do not transfer persons or property, sorry, neither the United States Supreme Court nor the California Supreme Court has ever held that. 1995. See, almost every state has had at least one of these cases that was appealed, and we got somewhere with it. Here's another one. Traffic statutes only apply to businesses and state vehicles, not to a sovereign individual like himself who utilizes his vehicle for personal needs. He maintains that if the statutes do apply to him, then they would violate his right to travel. And that, of course, was found that he was wrong. So, and here they get into, they try to redefine terms. Here they are This gal argued that the state failed to define driving and operating, and the courts just say these terms are synonymous. There is no error. You're going to see 89. We're in the 80s, and that's Texas, by the way, Sean. This guy's claim was rejected, and he also said, because I own nothing on my car, it's my private property, and it's not engaged in commercial travel, I don't need to be stopped, and I don't need a driver's license. And of course, court said we will not entertain it further. Another one from 85. As you see, this goes back a long way. That's why I can't believe when I got back on the internet that this BS was still being propounded on the internet. And, you know, I thought it died back in the 80s.
Well, you know what? I think that whole Miley Cyrus virus, we talked about this, I think increased the numbers even more because people were stuck at home just looking at YouTube videos thinking, ha, now I don't have to get a driver's license. Not the case.
And here's another guy, same thing, who owns nothing on his vehicle. They think it's a private, paid for household good or whatever the hell they want to call it, you know, just to play with the words. Here's another one from Washington. She said the same thing. Commercial vehicles only. I'm not commercial. And I wasn't in a vehicle because that's commercial. And the court said, well, you were in actual physical control of your vehicle. So the laws apply to you. States don't depend on the Commerce Clause for their authority to regulate private behavior. So it's irrelevant whether drivers are traveling for business purposes or across state lines. That's 2016. So like I say, there's many of them here. Here's an L. So I guess he probably has some more tendencies, but the same thing. And then we get here to this one here, that no authority under the United States Constitution to regulate the conduct of private citizens driving motor vehicles on the public highway unless they are engaged in interstate commerce. No, court said that it's been long established that under its police power. And here they have Hendrick v. Maryland again. And that's what I'm going to cover next. Will be Hendrick v. Maryland. And here's a whole bunch of other cases that I didn't cover. And you can just stop that and look at that sometime. So there you go.
Replay crew, put it on pause, rewind slowly and read those. So, what more do we know? What do you think? What more do we know about this whole sovereign citizen movement? It's growing larger as we see, and we talked about a couple reasons for it, but they're still not taking this seriously. And I see broken system, broken trust, still denying courts have any jurisdiction. Obviously, they do, Josh, because you showed up, and guess what? They got a warrant for you. And if you'd like, Judge Shackelford is a Chief Justice, and she'd like to know where you are, bud. That's all. Where you at?
Well,
where you at? She'll show you jurisdiction.
Josh does not know what jurisdiction is. That's his problem.
Yeah.
You know. It's like telling somebody to go telling your little kid to go get a crescent wrench, and he didn't know what the hell that is.
Yeah.
So any comments any need to respond to, or any questions?
Okay. I see some here. Let me see here. Okay. I hope this becomes a regular thing. And that very well could be. I hinted in some of the community posts that we plan to make some changes, and this may be one of them. So if you like it, let me know. And first question, how did the whole Admiralty law garbage show up? And that's by Confused Philosopher.
All right. The way we interpreted back in my day, you know, in the Sovcit day, was that since there is no money, and we would say that gold and silver is the only money there is, so since we don't have that anymore, nobody can really pay off their debts. Everybody just operates on credit. So everything becomes a credit transaction or a business transaction. And that brings the law merchant of the sea, international law merchant, and the admiralty jurisdiction, because everybody is in business and not paying their money. So it can't be anything constitutional. So they must be trying us under admiralty.
Yeah. And that whole gold fringe. just no.
Yeah, that's something that was added, like I said, since I was involved in it through the, rest of the 70s and 80s up to today, a lot of gurus or whatever added their little spin to it that they would throw in. Because, yeah, the gold fringe, I'd never heard of that. So I got back on the internet.
All right. And Deacon Fatal says, I do have a question. What is the avoidance with having insurance on the vehicle?
Well, Deacon, I don't get the avoidance of the insurance on the vehicle. You have to be just a little bit clearer there. I'll be happy to answer.
Alicia says, why does this nonsense persist? And that's what we've been asking. It has, failed time and time again for decades now. So I just don't get it. Follow-up question. Do we need the courts to come down on the guys harder? Because the Sovcits, you see some judges like Judge Wolf in Tennessee, Judge Slavin, there's a few, Judge Shackelford, definitely. And there's a few judges in states that just don't tolerate Sovcit pseudo nonsense.
Yeah, especially judges that aren't used to them. Maybe it's their first one, and all they know is they have a pro se litigant. And a lot of times, through my experience, judges will bend over backwards, many of them, for a pro se litigant, just to ensure that, all their rights are being protected and there's no appealable error happening and such as that. So that has kind of a lot to do with it, I think. But like you said, I've been happy to see a lot of judges just not putting up with it. And,
right.
Sometimes put them in time out for a while for contempt.
And it's happening more. There's a few judges that I'm sure we all could say the names of. We wish they'd use that whole contempt thing even more. There's one state in particular. It's over on the West Coast there. I'm talking about Washington. Yeah, you. I don't understand why your state has an issue with Sovcits. Oregon too, for the love of. And we saw what Christopher Walker did, with killing that passenger in that vehicle he hit head on. And he gets a little sentence. I think he gets out in 2 years. They're not coming down hard enough on the West Coast.
Well, I think that has a lot to do with the, liberalism that they have as far as, enforcing the laws, I guess. It has to fall into their political ideology somehow, or their social justice ideology somehow. It's the only thing I can figure. Because Washington's got good case law, where they look at, requiring a driver's license and registration just like everybody else. So I don't know.
Yeah, I read through the the laws in the motor vehicle laws in Washington, because I mean, obviously we're going to cover the cases. I'm going to do and make sure I'm going to know what each statute and code, and yes, statutes and codes are laws. Before we get to the next question, yes, statutes and codes are laws, correct, Juan?
Yeah, actually, if you really want to get pedantic about it, statutes are written laws by a legislative body. Codes are a set of books that have all the laws, statutes in them, arranged, in alphabetical order by subject matter to where you can find them real quick. So when they say codes, they're just really talking about a book of laws.
Yeah, they're codified laws. It's not difficult if you learn how to read, people. But I digress. Next question. Confused philosopher asks, are Sovcits considered cultish?
There is an element to that for some of them. I don't know if all of them who ascribe to one particular guru have the cultish mentality, but there certainly are many of them that do.
Yeah, there's many, especially the Sovcit Moorish, and we're going to get to them in another live stream. I promise you, that's a totally separate live stream. But many of those are very cultish. And
oh yeah,
then you have the, I can see the cultish with the David Wynn-Miller people. I can see that. David Straits people. Yeah. I don't see how or not,
Well, that's what I saw with the Mark Steven followers. He's the first one I really attacked as a pseudo lawyer guru, and a lot of his stuff still lingers on in some areas. Actually, broken system, broken trust, whether he realizes or not, tries to use those tired old scenarios that Mark Stevens would promote. And of course, he's no longer around. But there were a lot of people in there had a very cultish mentality. I mean, BSBT's a perfect example. He's still spouting shit from 20 years ago that has proven to be, incorrect and wrong and frivolous and without merit for years. But he's still, he's still culted mindset that it's the way, and he thinks he knows all this secret stuff, and he puts judges on the spot, and he's manipulating this and manipulating that. No, he just got some judges that were real easy on him, and some judges that didn't put up with his shit.
I love the fact that he was arguing with Judge Slavin, and Judge Slavin is a constitutional rights teacher in law school. He's a professor of constitutional rights. Come on. Why?
I like the one that told him I like the one that told him you're crazy talking. You're talking crazy.
Yeah. That's the one he referred to as a mob dude. So whatever, man. You do you. I don't want to be you because you have a warrant, and that's just whatever. Linux guy. So the fact that one judge dismissed is supposed to mean all would, but they don't. Yeah.
Well, if you're saying one judge may dismiss something, he may, usually it'll be the prosecutor that moves for dismissal. But, if the case is dismissed, it could be for any number of reasons. But like Sean, you said, and everybody else says, there's been no case that's been decided on the merits that you don't need a driver's license or all this other BS.
Exactly that. And that's what I've looked at. I'm like, yeah, but you didn't win really. Maybe it got dismissed because of whatever, stupid reason. Like I said, this morning, there was a Sovcit. The police officer didn't show up because he doesn't no longer work for the police station anymore. He works for a different police station in a different area. He didn't want to drive all the way to the other court, so they dismissed the case because they didn't have their witness. That doesn't mean you won, buddy. It just no.
Well, it is a win. I mean, I won't take that away from them. If you get a case dismissed, you won because you haven't been punished, because you didn't lose, I guess, and you're not being punished. So I get that, but that doesn't mean, like I said, that you didn't set any precedent. All this precedent that I've covered so far tonight is still valid. You know, so
right.
You haven't gained anything. But you know, here again, you get these cult mentalities, and they think the magic works. Oh my God, the magic works. But anyway, when we get to the point, let me know, because I want to cover the Hendrick case. But if we got more questions, let's keep going.
All right. And of course, BSBT says, so a traffic ticket is proof of jurisdiction. Are you sure? Is that your final answer?
No, I've never said I've always said a traffic ticket contains enough information on it to establish, with prima facie evidence, to establish a rebuttable presumption that jurisdiction has been established.
Very nice.
And I've said that a bazillion times to you, Josh.
Yeah, he has selective hearing.
And for instance, the Ohio Supreme Court has ruled that the uniform traffic citation form, which many states use the same form, is prima facie evidence. It contains prima facie evidence, and that is all that's needed to establish jurisdiction, to have an arraignment.
Right. And Gary, right. All this jazz about being commercial activity goes back to the misinterpretation of the word employed in Black's Law Dictionary. Yeah. Employed just means making use of. It doesn't have anything to do with working. It's just making. So you're saying you're useless. Is that what you're saying to each other? I'm not employed. So you're useless. Thanks. Put that on your bumper sticker, please. I'm useless. All right, next question. During the Miley Cyrus virus, while crossing state lines, was the stop for the request for the jab fair? Okay, so the stop for the request to get vaccinated, was that fair? Was that legal? In order to cross the border, leave the state, or go to work, and you know how what happened. That has nothing to do with right to travel, but it's close.
Well, here again, that was an exceptional situation, and I'm surprised, and I maybe it did happen, that people coming into a state had to prove that they had been vaccinated. A state can, I guess, quarantine under their police power for the health, safety, and welfare of their public, that they can request certain things such as that. I don't know of any case law on it. It would be interesting to see, because that may be considered not an unreasonable requirement or burden for you to go into the state. But I don't know. That's a very good question. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I had the same question when they made us, stay home, and but you can't go anywhere. And I'm like, hey, listen, I'm between countries all the time, so you can't tell me I can't go anywhere. And they tried to, and then until they opened back the border again for everybody else, dual residency, you can do that, but they denied a lot of people. And I'm like, wouldn't that break the right to travel?
Well, you got to remember now the border situation. You get out of the realm of the state's police power, and you're under the federal power.
Oh,
Then, and
I'm just talking like just say from New York to Vermont. They wouldn't let you leave the state. They wouldn't let you leave your home during this time. And
you actually had to sit in your home. I mean, I was never in any area where people weren't driving around, but
yeah,
so
only essential workers were allowed out at that time. And I'm like, yeah, this might be a problem. We'll find out.
So you're saying you couldn't get in your car and go to the grocery store to get some milk?
Well, as long as you wear a heavily spacesuit in your car and in the store, and only essentials. Yeah, I just didn't. But if you went across state lines and say New York State trooper saw a New Jersey plate, they pulled you over and said, "What are you doing? You're not supposed to be out and about unless you're an essential worker," which I thought was kind of odd. But hey, we're past that now. But I just still think that was a question of, are we leaning on those rights parts? All right, double D's. I want to know the parts of the Constitution these Sovcits bastardize that makes them claim they refuse to contract with the government. Why would they be required to?
I don't know where they get the idea that you have to contract with the government for something. I have a feeling that's come from a guru somewhere who tries to say that all laws are commercial, and since they're commercial, you have to have a contract for them to apply to you. Now, that's the only thing I can think of, because I don't think there's anything in the Constitution so much that they do bastardize some of it, but I don't know that they bastardize that part of it.
All right.
And you don't have to have a sign a contract. Your driver's license is not a contract. Your privilege to drive is not a contract.
But they claim it is.
Well, they can say, they say all sorts of things, but it's not, because it doesn't matter who you are. The courts say it's the act of driving on the public roads that's your implied consent to the traffic laws. So it doesn't matter where you're from, what your status is, whether you're a Martian that just landed. You get on the public roads operating some kind of vehicle, and the laws apply to you. It's just that simple.
All right. And we got one more before we go to Hendrick. And that's, do or should the vehicles be towed if there's no driver's license, insurance, and registration? I know. I
think so, but every
state's different. But I can tell you, in Canada, it's towed. Yeah, there's you can't even smoke in a vehicle with a child in the vehicle. If there's a child in the vehicle and you have a cigarette, you get a ticket. So that's all I'm saying. Yeah, it's much different. The states, there's differences. I see, officers have discretion whether they can tow it or not, and I think that's just kind of interesting.
Well, usually a cop can run your license and know whether your tag and see whether you have insurance. At least some states are that way. But no driver's license, I wouldn't think the car would have to be towed. No insurance, I would prefer that it was, because I don't want people out there, unless they just say, I just don't have proof of it with me, I'll prove it in court. So, I don't think they should be towed in every instance, but that's where the cop's discretion comes in, I guess.
Yeah. And like I said, that And you looked at Michigan's traffic laws, and they wrote them perfectly.
All the states have pretty much.
Yeah, but every state varies a little bit in their language, but it's the same thing. And this is what the Sovcits try to argue about, and I shake my head at these. So while I'm going to start some more questions, and if there is anybody, you can see the bottom ticker going. All you have to do is prove to Juan Galt that he's wrong. Prove to him he is wrong. And what would they win, Juan?
$10,000.
Cash.
Federal Reserve notes, whatever you want to call them.
Cash. Not delirium.
You ready for
yeah, let's head to Hendrick there.
All right, let me get my screen going here.
Oh, and also, whatever happened to Mark Stevens? Somebody asked.
Mark Stevens gave it up because a lot of people weren't buying into his BS anymore. And then some attorney out of Kansas wrote to the Arizona bar and told him that this guy's practicing law without a license. And the Arizona bar charged him with practicing law without a license, and told him if he didn't quit, or if he would quit, take everything off the internet, that they would not go forward with the charges. And that's what he did. And he's no longer on YouTube. He was there for about 20 years, I think, selling that stuff.
Yeah. And Josh, yes, the warrant is still valid for you. So that proves the court has jurisdiction, because they can take you in as soon as they see you. Clink, clink. But on to Hendrick versus Maryland.
Now, this is the case that decided for all times that the states could constitutionally require driver's license and registration for all who use the public roads. That's what this case is. This guy, Hendrick, he went into Maryland from D.C., and he didn't have his registration according to their law, and he was arrested and fined, and he fought it all the way up to the Supreme Court. And it specifically addresses the requirements of a driver's license and car registration. And the one thing you got to take away from this, the court said that the states had the constitutional power under their police power to regulate. It didn't tell them they had to. As a matter of fact, some states didn't require a driver's license until the 1950s. I think it was South Dakota was one of the last ones to require a driver's license, and that was like in 1954. Some 19 years or whatever after, or 39 years after this case right here. But this case right here.
Hold up one second. 1 second, Juan. Thank you, everybody, from coming over live from Biggins. Welcome. We're going over the whole Sovcit argument. Juan is right now going over Hendrick versus Maryland, which is the case. But thank you, Biggin, for sending everybody over, and hello, everybody.
Hey, good to see all those people. So we'll get back to Hendrick here. And like I said, this is the case that specifically addressed it. So this is what we're going to look at right here. And Hendrick said that he had a motion to quash the warrant because of the conflict between the statute and the Constitution of the United States, which was denied. He was found guilty and fined. Well, he came up with 4 defenses for this this case. But there's some things I want to show you here that was interesting. Like I said, he lived in D.C. and on this particular day, he left his office in Washington in his own automobile. See that there? And drove it over into Maryland. We don't know why he went there, but we know he was in his own automobile, and he was arrested on the charge of operating it upon the highways without having procured the certificate of registration required by Section 133 of the what? The Motor Vehicle Law. Well, look at that. An automobile is a motor vehicle.
Oh, my goodness.
And this is the meat of what that statute that he was challenging was. It's before any motor vehicle is operated upon the highways, the owner shall make a statement to the commissioner and procure a certificate of registration, and thereafter it shall bear a numbered plate. The reason why I have this here, though, I want you to see they use the term motor vehicle, machine, automobile, all to mean the same thing. All means the same thing to the courts. So
no.
Yeah, really, I promise.
Oh my goodness. And
so
that's in writing too, right? People can read this case, right?
Yeah, and if you really look at it, they don't talk about commerce at all, because this fee is based on horsepower of the vehicle. It's not based on how you use it, whether pleasure or commerce. It's based on horsepower. There's no mention of commerce in the law. Now, here's his four different defenses. He said it discriminated against the residents of District of Columbia. It attempted to regulate interstate commerce, which to me, back in this day, would have meant really interstate travel, but it could mean commerce as well. It violates the rights of citizens of the United States to pass into and through the state, which is right to travel. And it exacts a tax for revenue, not mere compensation for the use of the facilities, according to arbitrary classification, and thereby deprive citizens of the United States of the equal protection of the laws. Those were his four defenses against why the state couldn't require you to have a driver's license or a registration. And it goes through and it really explains in detail, the discrimination part here. And now this is the meat. This is why the states can regulate. And it's even more important today. They don't talk about the 10th Amendment. They don't talk about commerce. They don't talk about anything. They talk about this, that the movement of motor vehicles over the highways is attended by constant and serious dangers to the public. Remember me telling you to remember about the safety of the public?
Yeah.
And it is also abnormally destructive to the ways themselves. So in other words, these big machines that are full of flammable liquids like gas and battery acid and everything else that travel at a high rate of speed and that are heavy, they can kill people. They can injure people. They can damage property. And therefore, for the health, safety, and welfare of the public, the states can regulate this inherently dangerous activity. States, under their police power, can regulate any inherent dangerous activity, such as making of explosives or making of chemicals and things. Those people have to, those businesses and industries usually have to be away from, the public and places like that where they could damage it. So the whole thing is that is it. And the fact that these big machines also tear up the roads that are going to have to be resurfaced and repaired, and bridges and everything. So for these two purposes, to raise the revenue, to maintain the roads and meet the public demand for roads, and for the health, safety, and welfare of the people, states can constitutionally regulate all who use their roads. This is the meat. This is why nobody can win my $10,000, because you would have to prove to me that Hendrick v. Maryland has been overturned, and it has not and never will be.
Nope. And how many cases have been tried? Never.
Hendricks has probably been cited 300 times or something. I don't know how many hundreds of cases cite back to this case. Even today, in 2024, when somebody challenges the constitutionality of the traffic laws, somewhere, I guarantee you, in a decision, the court will quote Hendrick v. Maryland, even 9 years after the fact, because it's still good. And here's what it says. Here's what it says: the state may rightfully prescribe uniform regulations necessary for public safety and order in respect to the operation upon its highways of all motor vehicles, those moving in interstate commerce as well as others. And to this end, it may require the registration of such vehicles and the licensing of their drivers, charging thereof for reasonable fees. And here it was graduated horsepower and measure of speed, difficulty to control. This is but an exercise of the police power uniformly recognized as belonging to the states and essential to the preservation of the health, safety, and comfort of their citizens. And it does not constitute a direct and material burden on interstate commerce or interstate travel. So there you go. That's the biggie right there.
Yes, it is.
And feel free to look this up and check me out and see if I'm wrong or if I've read this wrong somehow. But I don't think I have. So I'm done with that.
Alrighty. Now we have a few more comments and questions, and then if anybody, I see Biggins in the chat, we can open the stream up for any panel guests if we want to take some panel guests to.
Yeah, anybody want to come up?
Okay, so let's see here. The next one that I had where we left off. Okay. Okay, that was just broken. Okay. All right, here you go. How is there not Who is Juan Galt merchandise yet?
Well, I do have a hat, and I do have some. I do have some sticky notes that say that on it.
Yeah, Juan and I actually talked about this because I was pestered by YouTube to attach a store to my channel, and I'm not a huge fan of that stuff. But I'm like, all right, fine. If you'll stop bothering me, I'll attach a store that puts whatever on it. I don't make any money off that merchandise, and I don't know their charges or whatever their charges is. What I did do on the Facts or Frauds merchandise is I made it so there's free shipping forever. Just use the code at the top of the screen when you get to the store. You don't have to pay shipping anymore. It's done. So that makes it even cheaper for y'all. All right.
I'm gonna guess Linux guy probably is familiar with Atlas Shrugged. I'm just gonna guess.
I'm guessing as well. Pedro Wagamo says, "Isn't a driver's license a contract? You voluntarily sign an agreement of the conditions."
No, it doesn't have all the elements of a contract.
All right.
Like I said, you don't have to have it for the laws to apply to you.
Now, R. Zarek says, where does that whole fee schedule idea come from?
That's a good question there, because I really don't know. There's some guru somewhere. Like I said, since I was in it 50 some odd years ago, there's been a lot of junk added onto it that is pretty silly. And I think that's one of the silliest ones, actually.
Yeah, definitely. That was the one that I looked at. And, okay.
Yes, Penny Pike. Yes, Penny Pike. Let me say to Penny Pike, you're right. The state owns the license. You're correct.
All right. Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, well, there's a little bit of an issue with some of that, but because yeah, you do have to sign, and it's not, it actually is property of the state.
It's an ID. Look at it more like an ID than a or a receipt proving that you paid for the privilege to be on that road driving.
Yeah, just like passports are property of that country. Same thing. Driver's license, a property of that state. My tribal ID, that's property of the resident council. That just has my picture and name on it. That's all that is. But now we got that done. Do you want to invite some folks up?
Yeah, anybody. Don't be scared. Come on up.
All right. I'm going to see if I can post it. Here, I'm going to star that. Come on. There we go. There you go. I highlighted the StreamYard link. If anybody has any questions for Juan or I. Wow, that just sounds like a bad alcoholic drink. Juan or I. Meanwhile, thanks. The thunderstorms have passed now. So no more lightning. We're good.
Did you get your electricity back?
Oh, of course.
Oh, good.
Of course. Yeah, that was just a brief few minutes of ooh. Now we don't have any power. Good thing we had those long cases for you to read. But other than that, I see a guest here waiting, and it would be Wonder Woman Goddess of Truth.
Hello there.
Hello.
Hello there. How are you doing? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Beautiful. I'm loving this format. I think it's fantastic. Thank you for doing it, Juan.
Well, thank you so much.
Oh my God, you are just like a breath of fresh air. I do have a curious question for you. Who was your guru when you fell down the rabbit hole?
Well, I really didn't have a guru, so to speak, because the Posse Comitatus was, at the time I was in it, was very sparse throughout the country. There was some on the West Coast, some down around Texas, I think up north a little bit. I was in Oklahoma, and some of the guys that was in the dorm or that I got to meet from Texas, they started talking about, we'd sit around at night and maybe get high with a little marijuana and just kind of talk about stuff, and that's where we got onto this licensing and do you really have to have it? And it was more or less just us kind of talking about it. And I kind of got excited about looking it up and learning how to go to the law library there on campus. And that's what I did. So it kind of just started that way. No real guru.
Yeah, because there was no social media back then for you, was there?
No, we would do, we would tape, videotape, VHS tape seminars and disseminate, sell those, pamphlets. There were some books that had come out. So it was very sparse. But
by the
word of
way,
mouth really seemed to take off.
By the way, Josh, Broken System, Broken Trust, Shameless is a Billy Joel song, not a Garth Brooks. I know he covered it, but it's a Billy Joel song. Get it right, buddy. Continue, Wonder Woman. Go ahead.
Did you ever do the no license, no registration, have the fake plates on your car?
No. Now, some of the people in the small towns that tried it at the time, whose license was suspended or not, some either suspended or expired, and they didn't go back, and they'd get stopped, and they would start, spewing all the script type stuff, and the cops would just let them go, and because back then, nobody had ever heard of it or anything like that, and it befuddled cops and even befuddled some small town DAs, and so it kind of got people thinking they were on a no contact list. I was in it long enough, like I said, about not quite 2 years, and my driver's license was still good during that time, so I didn't rescind it or anything like that.
Yeah, because if you had gotten pulled over for any of that and arrested, you wouldn't be able to be an attorney, would you?
Well, yeah, you can. I mean, you have to confess if you'd ever been arrested for anything like that. When I was a kid, I got arrested for shoplifting. So, but that didn't, anything that's not of moral turpitude sometimes is excusable.
Understandable, because attorneys have to be above and beyond what regular people, are responsible for being.
Yeah, they get one area where they really get you is if you commingle funds or your fiduciary responsibilities. If you violate that in some way, your client's money, they really come down hard on it.
Oh yeah, I remember Steve Leto. I don't know if you've heard of him. He is he does lemon law in Michigan, and he has his own channel. He was talking about that one time on one of his videos.
Yeah, I like that guy.
Oh yeah, he's fantastic. Question: where do they get the concept that the United States is a corporation and that we went bankrupt?
Well, they get the corporation from the Organic Act of 1871. And what that did is basically just set up a local government for D.C. because the Constitution says that Congress is the ones that runs D.C., makes all their laws and does all that kind of stuff. In 1871, they decided that they would allow D.C. to have their own local government. And that's what that case is. And so what the Sovcit say is that since that act came out, then the only United States only exists in D.C. because that set up a whole new constitution, and that D.C. and the federal government can only regulate the people who either live in D.C. or who work for the federal government. And that's kind of where that came from. The bankruptcy deal came with the seizure of gold, H.R. 192, I think, or something like that, back in 1933, where the government recalled and made it a crime to own gold. So in their minds, gold and silver is the only money, real money in the United States. Don't know where they get that idea. I kind of think I do, but it's not true. And so they say, since we don't have real money to pay off debts, then they went on a credit system because the United States went bankrupt. And that's why we don't have gold and silver.
So the very act of them recalling the gold and silver is where they think we went bankrupt, in other words.
Well, in the gold, actually. I mean, you could still have silver, but you couldn't even own any gold. It was illegal, except in jewelry or maybe collector coins or something like that. You could, that went on till 1975 when Nixon and they made it legal to where we could own gold again as people.
Oh, that's interesting.
All right, broken system, broken. Josh, listen to me. You have not proven Juan Galt wrong any time. And in fact, you probably owe him $10,000 for the advice he's given you.
Well, that's a fact.
That's what the channel's called. Facts or fraud. Josh, guess what? Guess which one you're on? It's not the fact side, buddy.
Yeah, it makes me laugh. People that believe all their rhetoric and think they're not wrong, and they run away from standing up for it when they are put to the test. That's just hilarious, and that's just cowardice. I mean, Lamar Dow from Fall of the Morons is still on the run.
All right. Well, we're not going to discuss the Moors and stuff
No,
like that.
I know, but it's just a concept. Either you believe it and you stand up for it, or you don't believe it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for having me on. I will let the next person bounce on up.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, two things. First off, I love the new format with this. I'd love to see more of it. And number two, suggestion, maybe in the description or somewhere, you can post lists of the cases that you cover in case people want to look them up themselves, read them later, or reread them later. Because I know I'd love to do that, and I'd love to include them in the library that I keep.
Okay, here's an easy answer to that. We can do that, but also you can always replay it. Pause, look at the case, the number, the year. Juan has it all on the screen.
Beautiful. Okay, have a good night, people. I'm going back to listening.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and now, yeah. And now Josh is saying, nope, that was my imposter. Yes, Josh, it was your straw man that said that. You're correct. All right, Juan.
Yes, sir.
We've been here for about an hour and 40 minutes. We still got 184 watching us. Would you like
challenges?
to go over?
Come on. Anything you want to know, people, if I can answer it about this nonsense, I'd be happy to. You got me right here now.
Yeah, any questions? I mean, bring them out. No holds barred. This is what this is for. We wanted to get the facts out, that it's not just the 10th Amendment as an answer. Because that's every video we've seen always says, well, here's your answer, 10th Amendment. No, it's a little bit more than that. And Juan proved that.
Yes, it's the inherently dangerous activity that the police power is there to regulate. And that's I'd love to see in comment sections more people saying that to these dumbasses.
Okay, Linux guy has asked, what do you think about all these lawsuits over hurt feelings this year? Well,
almost 100% of lawsuits and at least 50% of the people involved in them have hurt feelings of some kind. So I don't know in particular which one you're talking about, unless you're talking about the Trump stuff.
Okay, here now. Okay, La Petite Morte. Why do they fixate on the all caps thing? Oh, yes. There you go. Is it
they
just
have
spelling, or why the conspiracy complication there?
Okay, what they have been taught is that these gurus have come up with the idea that an all caps name is not really you. It's your straw man. Because anytime you see an all caps name, it means a corporation or a legal fiction. They believe that 100% because they say, well, all you got to do is look at your birth certificate. Your name is on all caps. All you got to do is look at your driver's license. Your name is on caps. Your utility bills, your name is all caps. That's because there is no money, and they're charging your straw man. They're not charging you as a human being. They're charging this straw man.
Yeah,
and
you can't be
fools,
charged. You're not a battery.
and these fools actually believe it. They believe that an all caps name, means exactly what these gurus mean. And so they operate off this confirmation bias. They gravitate to people that support that idea. So they get in these echo chambers, and everybody just knows that an all caps name means it's an artificial legal fiction. And just like the court cases I went through tonight, I showed you that the courts reject that as having no legal significance at all, an all caps name. Okay, the bottom line is the reason why everything's in all caps, because my birth certificate from 1949 is not in all caps, and my mother and father did not sign it. They say that your mother and father signs it to enroll you in the government, whatever, Mine wasn't signed and wasn't in all caps. But the reason everything's in all caps now is because everything's computer generated.
Yeah. Okay. Now, and Linux guy cleared up his question. He was talking about the many claimed defamation lawsuits like Janet Braun and such.
I have not followed those. It's all news to me.
Yeah, we talked about this on the other day, and I don't really pay attention to the news very much. Not politics, not news. No, thank you. I'm good.
Okay, I want to address Matthew Inman. He came up with a good question about, does the Sixth Amendment limit jurisdiction or simply extend it? Maritime law. It does neither. Jurisdiction is not even talked about in the Sixth Amendment. It just talks about your rights in a criminal proceeding. So jurisdiction is not even mentioned. Has nothing to do with jurisdiction.
All righty. Yep, I was actually about to highlight that when you said that too. That was good. And I'm going through and seeing if okay. So Sovcits think we all should have been called IT. Very good, Penny. Okay, Butcher Bird. What's the deal with Sovcits yabbering on about the federal government being a corporation and with it being just comprised of Washington, D.C.?
Yeah, that goes back to, like I said, the Organic Act of 1871 that established a municipal government for D.C. And that's where they get that it turned the federal government into a corporation. And there is under Title 28, Section 3002, I believe it is, where it's that particular section of law deals with the federal government trying to collect a debt, and it has to follow the Fair Debt Collection Act stuff. And so in their definitions, which apply only to that chapter, the United States is defined as a corporation. But it only means that for the purposes of collecting a debt, the federal government is restrained just like any corporation would be restrained. So it's not a universe, and that's what they hang their hat on, is that definition.
Yeah. And there you go. You have a thank you from La Petite saying, thank you for the concise explanation. I appreciate it. Metal yellow, first red.
You are very welcome. And I really, that's what I try to do. I try to break down really complex legal issues, and there's a lot of nuance I leave out, but I try to get it for somebody who's never been to law school, never thought about it, doesn't know anything, and I want to try to connect it to them to where they can understand it. So I hope I succeed to some degree in that endeavor.
All right. Okay. Well, I think that's all the questions, don't? And then, yeah, that would be all the questions we've got. I don't see any more
Sputsy
questions.
Love. Thought I'd say hi to Sputsy Love there.
Aha. I see that. Oh, good. There you go. You think you would ever do a session with Team Skeptic? I'm sure Team
I would if he.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in contact with Skeptic a lot every now and then. So I would, sure.
All right. Very cool. And I'm going down, and that is all.
What is Ocean Moshi trying to say here? I'm trying to get this figured out.
Article 3, Section 2, Clause 2, in all cases affecting ambassadors, other public ministers, and consuls, and those in which a state shall be a party, the Supreme Court shall have original jurisdiction. I think Ocean Moshi is answering Broken System, Broken Trust's jurisdiction question.
Okay, good luck with that.
Yeah, Josh,
he doesn't understand much.
Yeah, that warrant is jurisdiction on it. Just take a step in the sheriff's office. Say, hi, my name is Josh. See what happens. See if you can go home afterwards. Please.
Yes. The Supreme Court in some issues has original jurisdiction. In some issues, it has exclusive jurisdiction. In some issues, it has appellate jurisdiction.
Very cool. And Sonny says, I can't wait for you to put up your next live stream. Education, entertainment, win-win. Thank you very much, Sonny.
Yes, thanks for that.
Oh, Double D's has a question. Let me get to that one, too, because that one's actually a very good question. And Double D's, are you the one from that I was talking to in Reddit?
That's a hard question, Double D's. That's really hard because you got to know the parties involved and the dynamics of the relationship and everything else. I agree with you. When the kids are involved and they get traumatized by policemen doing their job and their parents are screaming like they're stuck pigs. Yeah, I can't imagine what impact that's having on those little kids. I agree with you so much there.
Okay, well, Double D's, right there's a StreamYard link. You asked if you can come up on the stream to ask any questions. So there's the StreamYard link, and we're streaming live on Juan's channel too. So if you want to ask Juan a question from his channel, or you want to ask a question from here, we're live both places. And we got somebody, Alex. Give me 1 second, Alex. We have to be careful because of stuff. It's not that we don't trust you. We just have to be careful. What's happening, my friend?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Oh, great. Yeah, I realize my question's kind of multifaceted because what really kills me is seeing the windows breaking, their parents being dragged out of the car, and these children are just traumatized in the backseat. But
Yeah.
the other things we don't see are the IRS performing their functions, and now here's a spouse that knows nothing about this, suddenly saddled with debt, because the innocent spouse part only goes so far. And yeah, that's a question I've been wondering about for a long time, is how can they protect themselves from this when they themselves don't even really know that much about it.
Well, they always say knowledge is power, and it's hard to protect oneself against a government process like taxation or something like that if they really don't know where they stand in that process. Yeah, you've got a common, if this is your problem, I won't say it is or isn't, but
No,
it is a common problem. It is a common problem sometimes when a wife, for instance, who really doesn't know the family business as far as doing the tax stuff. The husband does that and all kinds of that. She doesn't know what she's getting saddled with because she loves him, trusts him, or whatever, and signs on the 1040 form. And so when you do a joint form like that, you're both equally liable. I haven't been in the income tax arena for decades, so I don't know how it works so much today, but I would think one step of protection would be to file, separate returns to begin with. Now the husband won't like that. Well, the husband won't like that because he wants to take, the wife's deduction off his taxes. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. I just because I just have nightmares of like the children being torn away from their mother because of what the husband does or something like that, because people automatically assume that all these guys are violent.
Yeah.
That's why you really have to choose. You have to choose a partner, just like you're going into business with that partner. Unfortunately, that the modern society we live in, it's kind of almost come to that. You gotta figure out who you're hooking your star to.
Yeah, I'm lucky in that respect because mine is, but the relationship is much more important, and that was all I needed to hear.
All right, very good.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming up.
Thank you, Alex. All right, and that reminded me when I asked if she was the same person I was talking to on Reddit, because there was somebody on Reddit that said and was talking to me that their brother is a heavy Sovcit and they're filing for a restraining order tomorrow and moved in with their mother, and all of a sudden the will's changed. The mother's elderly and not all faculties are working, and it's a very sad situation because this is exactly what Sovcits do. They prey on folks like that. So this member of the family has to go and try to battle out this Sovcit who has a lot of money and friends in the Sovcit area, from taking away his mother's home and anybody else's inheritance, whatever. It's horrible.
Well, do you think there's been some undue influence that has subjected this diminished capacity lady?
Yeah, I guess the brother is a guru for the Anna von Reitz spiel of Sovcitness, and it's just it's sad.
Yeah, you can't think of much about a human being that would do that to their mother or any relative, let alone a stranger. That's just one of those things that his siblings are going to have to take him to task and challenge him on, I guess, in court for maybe undue influence. Looking at Penny Pike here.
Yep.
I would hope, Penny, that 10 days would snap him out of it. I don't want to go 30 days on somebody who's just a dumbass and can realize it in a shorter period of time. So whatever works that would get them to straighten up, I would be fine with, I guess.
Yeah. It's well, we just saw the guy in Michigan, Mr. McLeod, today. Like I said, didn't show up for his pretrial. What happens? Well, warrant, obviously. And after he gets brought in on the warrant the very next day, are you listening, Josh? He gets brought in the very next day. The judge revoked his bond. Trial's not until October. Guess where Mr. McLeod's sitting till October? Yeah, he's in county jail. That's a couple months away. That's more than 30 days.
Okay, Josh. Yes, it is a waste of time to ask about getting a fair and meaningful hearing when you go to court and learning the charges. That's called an arraignment. It's not a hearing. It's not an evidentiary hearing. It's not a hearing other than here's the charges. How do you plead? So yeah, it is a waste of time.
Yes. Penny said, thank you, Juan. They need time in the tank to contemplate their future. Yeah. And that's what Judge Gauthier said today. Or is it Gaucher? He said in Michigan today to Mr. McLeod, it's really sad that you have to learn civics at this age and the hard way. But that's what you chose. Take some hints, Josh. Take some hints. Yeah, I told you. Chief Justice Shackelford and Taylor. You got a warrant, bud. You think they're just going to drop it. It ain't going to happen. That's jurisdiction all over it. Any other questions we have?
Well, the God is the truth here. I don't think it would be illegal for judges to tell them that. Be honest. I mean, they don't have to follow through with it, but any threats or coercion, as they call it, should. I mean, he's giving them a fair warning, so that should be enough.
Yeah, right. Yeah, listen, you're not under duress, and we've all seen that court clip where the judge makes the Sovcit sign his next court hearing paper for the date. So it just shows he got notified of the next date. And the Sovcit writes, under duress. Judge prints out another form, sign it again. He wrote it again, under duress. Judge prints out another form, says you do it again, you're in contempt.
Jackson 68, is that a question for us here? I'll answer it for you. The cause is the action that you took that is an alleged violation. The nature of it will be whether it's criminal or civil. That would be the nature of the charge.
There you go. All right, friends, we're breaking on almost 2 hours and about 50 seconds here. I think this was great. I had a good time. I hope you all did.
I do too. I hope everybody enjoyed it.
Yeah, and I hope Jay Lubba, wherever you are, you started out in the beginning of the stream all full of vigor and you wanted your questions answered and you just disappeared, bud. Sorry.
Ah, the truth scares away the ultra-crepidarians. That's my favorite word, I call them ultra-crepidarians, my favorite word. It means somebody who talks out their ass on a subject they know nothing about.
Pretty much. Thank you, Linux Guy. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Juan, for joining me.
Thank you, Sean.
We have had a great time today, and we will do it again. No question about it. We have much more subjects to cover on this whole Sovcit movement thing. We just wanted to get out the whole right to travel nonsense. And it's not just the 10th Amendment. Remember, as Juan said, what?
It's an inherently dangerous activity that can be regulated. That's the bottom line that the Supreme Court said. And didn't say the states had to do it. And it's Hendrick v. Maryland.
That's right. Hendrick v. Maryland. Better than the 10th Amendment. Till next time. Juan, thank you, my friend.
Thank you, Sean. Thank everybody for showing up. I really, really appreciate your time.
Yes, thank you, guys. Appreciate you all. Make sure you hit the like button on each of our channels and share the stream out. Get the word out that actually there's facts in here. See you next time.
Country when it rains. I like country when it's real. Or when it's sung for the school of the hardest knocks, not for mass appeal. I like country when it's loud, ringing out the blast. I like country when it's real. I like country when it's loud. Play a little Johnny Cash for me and make me feel it down home. When old Waylon's on the backbeat, honey, he sounds better than the storm. Somebody help me make it through the night. I'm seeing nothing through a neon light. So play it loud and I'll play it right all night. I don't wanna go home. I like country when it rides. I like country when it's real. But when it's song goes through the hardest knocks, not man's appeal. I like country when it's long, ringing out the block. I like country when it's real. I like country when it rides. A little something with a twang to it, like they used to do. The kind of song that kept you good.